So in this video, we're going to talk about the medical drug N-Acetylcysteine, which for short is often abbreviated down to NAC and called NAC. So the major use of this medication is as an antidote for paracetamol. So in people who have taken paracetamol overdoses, the major risk is that they will get severe liver damage. So paracetamol is incredibly hepatotoxic in overdose, and NAC is able to massively reduce the risk that this will occur. It's an antidote to the hepatotoxic effects of paracetamol. So if people present following a paracetamol overdose, we frequently give them intravenous NAC to try and massively reduce the risk that they will suffer a hepatic injury from the paracetamol overdose. And that's going to be the main topic for this video, the use of NAC intravenously to treat paracetamol overdose and prevent hepatotoxicity. Before we come on to that, let me just say that there are other reasons that people can be using this drug, and for those other reasons, they will be taking the oral version of this drug. So it exists also as a tablet, and the main reason it would be prescribed as a tablet is as a mucolytic drug. So what is a mucolytic drug? A mucolytic drug is something that reduces the viscosity, meaning the thickness of mucus/phlegm in the respiratory tract. So in certain chronic lung conditions such as COPD and bronchiectasis, people can produce a lot more mucus than is normal. In addition, as people get older, the respiratory muscles, so the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles, they usually get weaker and are less able to produce powerful coughs to move mucus. Also, things like kyphosis can occur, so people can get more curved spines as they get older. This can anatomically mean that bringing mucus up the respiratory tract can become more difficult. Overall, what I'm trying to say is that some people have trouble clearing mucus from the respiratory tract for all of these reasons that I've just said. So chronic lung conditions, meaning more mucus is being produced, or frailty, meaning that the muscles are less strong to produce less strong coughs, and then anatomical changes that might mean that the path is just less easy for the mucus to follow. Anyway, there's a problem with this because the whole point of the mucus is to trap dirt and bacteria that you've breathed in it, and then it's supposed to then be moved up and out. That's the crucial part, that it needs to then be moved up and out. It's no good just trapping the dirt and bacteria and then not moving up and out. So you're supposed to cough it up or you're supposed to swallow it. So if that doesn't happen, if instead the mucus sits in the airways of the lungs, then yes, it traps the bacteria in the dirt, but then it doesn't move it out. Instead, that bacteria and dirt just stays there, and the bacteria are going to increase in numbers inside the mucus, and they're going to set up potentially very severe infections. So people who have trouble clearing phlegm from the respiratory tract are very prone to chest infections that could be life-threatening. Now, we have a way of trying to treat that. Now, we can't really do anything about the frailty, the reduced muscle power. We can't really do much about scoliosis and kyphosis either, but we can do something to try and actually make the phlegm more easy to bring up, and there are drugs that actually make the phlegm more liquidy, less thick, and more easy therefore to move up, and these drugs are called mucolytics. And acetylcysteine is actually an example of a mucolytic. Now, in all honesty, I have never seen anyone on oral acetylcysteine as a mucolytic drug, but I am aware that it is an option. In the UK, the one that we prescribe all the time and see people on quite regularly is the related drug carbocysteine. So that's all I'm going to say about this topic, just that acetylcysteine can be taken orally as a mucolytic drug, but it's not really the main one, at least in the UK it's not the main one. The main one that we use is the related drug carbocysteine, but be aware that acetylcysteine is an alternative to carbocysteine, so that's another use of this medication, but not the one that we're going to focus this video on. Finally, before we move on to discussing paracetamol overdoses, there is another reason that people can take acetylcysteine. So acetylcysteine, it's a prescription medicine, but you are actually able to buy it in sort of herbal medicine stores. So the main herbal medicine store in the UK is a shop called Holland & Barrett, and in there you can buy all sorts of different vitamins and supplements and things that are supposed to increase your health. And one of them that you are able to buy in there is N-Acetylcysteine. And so some people do buy it in that store and take it, not because they necessarily need a mucolytic, but because they just think that it is going to increase their health in some way. Now, I'm not an expert, I haven't read up on whether acetylcysteine does increase your health, so I'm not going to make any sort of comment on that, but I assume that someone else has thoroughly analysed whether there is any evidence that acetylcysteine prolongs your life and makes you healthier, makes you happier, who knows, and hasn't found any evidence in favour of that. Otherwise, I presume it would be standard advice. Like vitamin D is now standard advice that everyone should be taking vitamin D. If there was evidence for acetylcysteine, I would imagine that it would be standard advice that we should all be taking N-acetylcysteine, and it's not, so I assume there isn't any evidence that it actually makes you healthier in any way. However, some people must believe it and therefore do buy it, and it doesn't seem to do them any harm, so that's another reason that someone might be taking N-acetylcysteine, that they're buying it in a health shop and taking it because they perceive it to have some sort of health benefit for them. And maybe it does, maybe it's helping them bring up mucus, maybe they did have quite sticky mucus. So, we won't say any more about that. Let's now move on to paracetamol. So, paracetamol overdoses then. So, firstly, paracetamol. I apologise to my American viewers, and I know I have a lot of American viewers. In fact, the majority of my viewers are from the United States. So, in the United States, paracetamol is not called paracetamol, it's called acetaminophen. So, apologies to any Americans watching this. I'm going to say paracetamol throughout this video because it's the term we use all the time, but you can just replace it with acetaminophen. So, also we will only be talking about paracetamol overdoses in adults. Children are much more complicated. The doses that become toxic are different depending on how old and how big the child is. So we're not going to even broach that topic. More complicated, we're just going to deal with paracetamol overdoses in adults. So paracetamol tablets generally contain 500 milligrams of paracetamol, and the normal dose for a normal weight adult, i.e. someone greater than 50 kilograms, is that you can take 2 paracetamol tablets up to 4 times a day. So 1 gram is the dose that you're allowed in a single dose. You can just take 1 tablet, so you can have 500 milligrams, but you're allowed up to 1 gram in a single dose, and you're allowed 4 doses a day. Ideally, they should be at least 4 hours in between doses. So a total maximum daily dose of 4 grams a day. Now, paracetamol overdoses can be either accidental or they can be deliberate. And in my experience, accidental overdoses are quite rare and deliberate overdoses are much more common. Most of the overdoses that I see are deliberate. Now, the way in which the paracetamol is taken in accidental versus deliberate is slightly different. So in accidental, it's usually what we call a staggered overdose, whereas in deliberate, it's usually an all-in-one-go overdose. So the only case that I've ever seen of an accidental overdose, the individual had pain in their leg for reasons that we won't go into. And they were taking both paracetamol and cocodamol without realising that that's not okay. So cocodamol is a combination of paracetamol and codeine, and in the UK the over-the-counter strength cocodamol that you're able to buy is 8,500. So each tablet contains 500 milligrams of paracetamol and 8 milligrams of codeine. And again, you can take 2 tablets up to 4 times a day. And this individual, I think, was taking 2 paracetamol tablets 4 times a day, and they were also taking 2 of these cocodamol tablets 4 times a day. So effectively, every single dose they were taking these painkillers, they were effectively getting 2 grams of paracetamol to make up a daily dose of 8 grams, and then they've been taking that for several days. Now, just taking 2 grams of paracetamol, if I was to take 4 paracetamol tablets now, it's not advisable, you should not do that, but if I was to do it, that is not going to cause me major liver damage. It's not going to cause toxicity. It would be pretty horrifying if, this over-the-counter drug was sold where all you need to do to get severe toxicity is take double the dose that you're supposed to, take twice as many tablets as you're supposed to. Its toxicity is not quite that bad. You have to take a few more than just double the dose in order to get toxicity. However, these individuals who are taking double the dose for a prolonged period of time, that can start to build up to toxic levels in the blood. So it is actually as dangerous, it can become as dangerous as if an individual has taken a huge number all in one go. So that type of overdose is known as a staggered overdose, and that's the type of overdose that is usually the case only for accidental overdoses, whereas deliberate overdoses are usually all in one go overdoses. So, going back to deliberate overdoses, these all in one go dose overdoses, how much paracetamol do you actually have to take before it's going to cause major liver damage? So, these are rough guidelines, is the reality. Don't take these as the gospel truth. These are rough guidelines for adults just to give you a basic idea. Obviously, it differs for different people, depending on how big they are, depending on how healthy their liver is, how good they are at metabolizing the drug, etc. So it is not as simple as what I'm going to say, but this is just a rough guideline. So generally, if a healthy weight adult, let's say an 80-kilogram man, has taken less than 10 paracetamol tablets, so a total dose of less than 5 grams, and very rarely are deliberate overdoses that small. If they have taken less than 10, it likely is not going to cause any significant problems. So I wouldn't worry too much if they've just taken, like, I don't know, 8 paracetamol tablets all in one go. Between 10 and 20 is where you start to get worried. That's the sort of doses, say if they've taken, let's say, 18, I would be slightly worried at that point, but not extremely worried. They'll probably get away with it in this range, but they might not. So it's sort of like the range where you start to get worried and you don't know quite whether damage is going to occur. When it's greater than 20, so they've taken a cumulative dose of more than 10 grams of paracetamol, or a total dose of more than 10 grams of paracetamol, that's where you should be very worried. It's almost certain that they are going to get severe liver damage from that unless they have the antidote. So those are the sort of ranges